In photography, making sense of some of the jargon can be a daunting task. Understanding certain terms and how they apply to your camera is key to taking excellent photos. In this video, we will introduce ISO for beginners and explain how to use it effectively for the best possible results. So let's get started. Before getting started, if you are new here, then subscribe our channel and show some love by hitting like button. ISO simply stands for the International Organization of Standardization, which is the main governing body that standardizes sensitivity ratings for camera sensors. Having a standard of sensitivity is important, as it allows you to shoot the same ISO on different cameras and trust that the exposure value will be equal. ISO is one of the three pillars of photography, and it has a major effect on your images. In very basic terms, ISO is simply a camera setting that will brighten or darken a photo. As you increase your ISO number, your photos will grow progressively brighter. For that reason, ISO can help you capture images in darker environments, or be more flexible about your aperture and shutter speed settings. However, raising your ISO has consequences. A photo taken at too high of an ISO will show a lot of grain, also known as noise, and might not be usable. So, brightening a photo via ISO is always a trade-off. You should only raise your ISO when you are unable to brighten the photo via shutter speed or aperture instead. Every camera has a different range of ISO values, sometimes called ISO speeds, that you can use. A common ISO value range for all DSLR is 100 to 25,600. Quite simply, when you double your ISO speed, you are doubling the brightness of the photo. So, a photo at ISO 400 will be twice brighter than ISO 200, which will be twice brighter than ISO 100. Beyond simply changing the exposure, ISO also affects image quality. A higher ISO typically translates to a noisy or grainy image, just as a higher ISO film has more grain than one with a lower ISO. The picture showcases on screen shows how ISO can directly impact image quality, though, keep in mind that the particular noise levels depend on the camera. A lower ISO won't just make less noise, however. It will produce better color and dynamic range, which is the ability of the camera to capture detail in both highlights and shadows. Therefore, it is generally recommended to keep ISO as low as possible in order to get the highest quality output from your camera. Nonetheless, there are times when it will not be possible to get a proper exposure without increasing the ISO. The most obvious example of this is low light scenarios, especially indoors. Other situations in which you may need a high ISO include instances when you need to capture action which requires a fast shutter speed or deep depth of field which requires a small aperture. On cameras with larger sensors, ISO can often be raised quite high before it starts to significantly impact image quality. So in the simple language, ISO is camera's setting which is used to add light in image. As you increase ISO value, your photo gets brighter, but remember, high ISO is equal to more grains at decreased quality of image. Okay, that's all for this video. I hope you better understand ISO and its merits and demerits. If you like this video, then just hit subscribe button and stay tuned for next videos.